The stars burned cold above Earth when the Dominion arrived. Their ships descended like iron mountains, blotting out the sun over every major city. The vessels were not elegant or beautiful. They were functional, brutal things, designed by a civilization that had spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of conquest. Commander V stood on the bridge of the flagship, his three eyes scanning the primitive planet below with something approaching boredom. "Another world," he said to his second officer. The Dominion had conquered 847 species across the galaxy. They had fought creatures that could breathe fire, beings made of pure energy, hive minds that controlled millions of bodies, and countless others. Each time, the Dominion had won, not through luck or superior numbers, but through perfect understanding. They had reduced warfare to mathematics, to pure calculation. Their absolute war theory could predict the outcome of any conflict before the first shot was fired. Earth's resistance was expected. It was even calculated into their projections. Humanity fought with nuclear weapons, with biological warfare, with everything they had. Cities burned. Millions died in the first week. The Dominion's response was measured and precise. They disabled nuclear capabilities, destroyed military installations, and began their systematic occupation. By their calculations, Earth would surrender within 3 months. But something was different about humans. They kept fighting even when the mathematics said they should stop. They launched attacks that made no tactical sense. They died for causes that offered no logical benefit. Commander V found this both frustrating and fascinating. "Their behavior is irrational," his tactical officer reported. "They continue resistance even when survival probability reaches 0. Then we will study them," V decided. "We will understand this irrationality and add it to our calculations." The war ground on. Humans fought in the ruins of their cities, in the mountains, in the deserts. They used guerrilla tactics, hit-and-run attacks, anything to slow the inevitable. The Dominion adapted to each strategy, their algorithms learning and predicting. But still, humans surprised them. Not enough to win, never enough to win, but enough to delay. In the Appalachian Mountains, a human resistance cell had been particularly troublesome. They had destroyed 3 Dominion supply convoys and killed nearly 200 soldiers. V decided to deal with them personally. He led a force of 500 elite warriors into the forested mountains. Following the human patterns his computers had identified, the battle was brief but intense. Humans poured gunfire from hidden positions. They used the terrain expertly, turning the forest into a maze of death. But the Dominion had fought in worse conditions on 100 worlds. They advanced methodically, using energy shields and superior firepower to overwhelm the resistance. Staff Sergeant Marcus Webb had known this day would come. He had fought in 3 wars before the aliens arrived, and he understood what defeat looked like. His unit was down to 30 soldiers, low on ammunition and surrounded. He gave the order to scatter, to survive if they could. Then he stayed behind to buy them time. He killed 7 Dominion soldiers before they cornered him, not with lucky shots but with precise, calculated fire. Each bullet found a weak point in their armor. Each movement maximized his tactical advantage. Even outnumbered and outgunned, Marcus made them pay for every step. When the energy blast finally hit him, dropping him to the forest floor, he had expected death. Instead, he woke to blinding white lights and the sensation of being studied. Commander V stood over the human soldier, examining him with clinical interest. The medical scanners showed typical human physiology, nothing exceptional, but the tactical recordings of the battle told a different story. This human had fought with unusual efficiency, demonstrating combat instincts that impressed even Dominion standards. "This one," Vex said. "He will serve our purposes." The Dominion had recently developed a new technology, something they called neural integration. The theory was simple but revolutionary. By mapping the neural pathways of captured enemy soldiers, they could extract tactical knowledge and integrate it directly into their own combat networks. They would literally steal the enemy's ability to make war and use it against them. But the technology was still experimental. They had tested it on several species with mixed results. Some subjects died immediately, others went insane. A few provided useful data before their brains burned out from the strain. The Dominion needed a more robust test subject, someone with enough combat experience to provide valuable data, but resilient enough to survive the procedure. Marcus Webb seemed perfect. They strapped him to a medical table in the ship's laboratory. Dozens of alien scientists moved around him, attaching sensors to his skull, injecting strange fluids into his veins. Marcus tried to struggle, but the restraints were impossibly strong. He could only watch as they lowered a helmet covered in glowing nodes onto his head. "Begin the integration," V commanded. The pain was indescribable. Marcus felt like his brain was being turned inside out, every memory and thought exposed and examined. He saw his entire life flash before him, not as memories but as data. Every battle, every decision, every moment of fear and courage reduced to numbers and patterns. He screamed until his voice gave out. The Dominion scientists watched their screens with growing excitement. The humans' neural patterns were more complex than expected, showing tactical thinking that rivaled their own. They began downloading this information, copying it into their systems. But something went wrong. The integration process was supposed to be one way. They would take the humans' knowledge without giving anything back. But the connection was more than they anticipated. As they pulled information from Marcus' mind, their own technology began flowing back into him. The alien systems designed to analyze warfare found something unexpected in the human brain, a capacity for abstract thinking about conflict that their rigid mathematical models could not fully comprehend. The laboratory filled with alarms. Energy readings spiked beyond safe levels. Several scientists stepped back in alarm as Marcus' body began to convulse. The neural connections were forming faster than they could track, creating feedback loops and strange new pathways. The human brain was not just receiving their technology. It was integrating with it, merging with it in ways that should have been impossible. "Shut it down," Vec ordered. But it was too late. The process had taken on a momentum of its own. The alien technology designed to map warfare was finding something in Marcus' mind, some fundamental human understanding of conflict that went beyond mere tactics. It was not just learning his knowledge. It was learning how he thought, how humans approached the concept of war itself. And in that learning, it changed. Marcus felt something breaking inside his mind. But it was not destruction. It was transformation. The alien systems were rewriting his neural pathways, but his human consciousness was adapting, incorporating the technology into itself. He could feel new senses awakening, new ways of perceiving reality that had no name in any human language. The convulsions stopped. The alarms continued to blare, but Marcus lay still on the table. His eyes were open but unfocused, seeing things that were not visible to normal sight. The scientists approached cautiously, checking their instruments. "The subject lives," one reported. "But the readings are unprecedented." Commander V studied the data with growing concern. The integration had not failed, but it had not succeeded as planned either. Something new had been created, something their models had not predicted. The human brain patterns showed activity in regions that should have been inactive. More troubling, their own systems were reporting strange feedback, as if the connection was still active even after the equipment had been powered down. "Place him in containment," Vake ordered. "Full isolation. We will observe before proceeding further." They removed Marcus from the laboratory and placed him in a holding cell deep within the ship. The cell was designed to hold the most dangerous prisoners from across the galaxy. Energy barriers, armed guards, monitoring systems covering every angle. They left him there unconscious and restrained while they analyzed what had happened. Marcus woke slowly. His head throbbed with a pain that seemed to exist in dimensions beyond the physical. But as consciousness returned, so did something else. He could see the cell around him, but he could also see more. He saw the weak points in the energy barrier, the patrol patterns of the guards outside, the structural vulnerabilities in the walls. It was not just visual information. It was tactical knowledge appearing directly in his mind, as clear and certain as his own name. He sat up and the restraints fell away, not because he had broken them, but because he had simply known which precise point to pressure with minimal force to make them release. The knowledge had come to him unbidden, as natural as breathing. Marcus stood and approached the energy barrier. To any normal person, it would appear as a solid wall of deadly force. But Marcus could see it differently now. He saw it as patterns, as flows of energy with gaps and rhythms. He saw exactly when and where he could pass through safely. He did not understand how he knew this. He simply knew. He walked through the barrier without triggering any alarms. The guards outside never even turned. Marcus had moved at the precise moment when both were looking away, stepping into the one blind spot their positioning created. Again, the knowledge had simply appeared in his mind, as obvious as the sun rising in the east. As he moved through the ship, the same thing kept happening. He knew which corridors were empty, which doors were unlocked, which ventilation shafts could support his weight. Every tactical consideration appeared before him like a map only he could read. Behind him, alarms finally began to sound. The Dominion had discovered his escape. Soldiers poured into the corridors, weapons ready, but Marcus was already gone, stealing a small transport craft and launching into Earth's atmosphere before they could organize a response. Commander VE watched the escape with a mixture of anger and fear. The human had moved through their ship like a ghost, anticipating every security measure, avoiding every patrol. It should have been impossible. Their security systems were perfect, tested on thousands of prisoners. Yet this human had simply walked out. "Find him," V ordered. "Whatever we created, we must destroy it before it becomes a threat." But even as he gave the order, V felt a chill run through his body. The Dominion's absolute war theory had never failed before. But something told him that Marcus Webb was going to break that perfect record. The human had not just escaped their prison. He had become something new, something their mathematics could not predict. Marcus guided the stolen craft toward the mountains where his unit had made their last stand. The ship handled differently than anything he had flown before, but his hands moved across the controls with perfect confidence. He knew exactly how to pilot it. Though he had never seen this technology before, the knowledge simply existed in his mind now, available when needed. As he flew, Marcus tried to understand what had been done to him. He remembered the pain, the sensation of his mind being torn apart and rebuilt. But the memories felt distant, belonging to someone else. What he felt now was clarity, a terrible, perfect clarity that showed him the world as a battlefield, every element a potential tactical asset or threat. He landed in a clearing and abandoned the craft. Within hours, Dominion forces would track it. But by then, Marcus would be gone, moving through terrain he knew better than any alien could. He had to find the resistance, had to warn them about what was coming. What Marcus did not know, could not know yet, was that he had become something more dangerous than any weapon the Dominion had ever created. The experiment had not just given him tactical knowledge. It had turned him into a living embodiment of warfare itself. And every battle he fought would make him stronger, more dangerous, more inhuman. The war for Earth had just begun. But it would not be the war anyone expected. Marcus moved through the forest like a predator, but he was both hunter and something else entirely. Every step felt calculated, measured, perfect. His boots found the quietest spots on the ground without conscious thought. His breathing synchronized with the wind to mask any sound. These were skills he had learned over years of training, but now they operated on a different level, enhanced by something that was not quite human anymore. 3 days had passed since his escape from the Dominion ship. 3 days of moving through the mountains, avoiding patrols, and trying to understand what he had become. Marcus stopped by a stream to drink. As he knelt by the water, he caught sight of his reflection. His face looked the same, but his eyes had changed. There was something in them now, a calculating coldness that frightened him. He closed his eyes and tried to think of his wife, Sarah, who had died in the first Dominion attacks. He tried to remember the pain of loss, the human emotion that had driven him to keep fighting. But the memory felt thin, distant. What came more easily was the tactical analysis of her death, the trajectories of the Dominion weapons, the optimal cover positions she should have used. Even his grief had been processed into data. "What did they do to me?" Marcus whispered to the empty forest. The answer appeared in his mind unbidden. Neural integration with Dominion tactical systems. partial merger of human consciousness with alien warfare algorithms, estimated 73% retention of original personality, increasing tactical processing capability with each combat engagement. The information simply existed, as if he were reading his own technical specifications. Marcus stood and continued moving. He had to reach the resistance base in the valley, had to find people who could help him understand this. But with each hour that passed, he felt less like Marcus Webb and more like a weapon searching for a target. Behind him, the Dominion deployed their forces with unusual urgency. Commander VE had mobilized 3 full battalions to search for one human. His officers questioned the commitment of resources, but VE knew what they did not. The readings from Marcus' escape had shown something impossible. The human had not just learned their tactics, he had evolved beyond them. A patrol of 12 Dominion soldiers moved through a mountain pass, scanning for any sign of the escaped prisoner. They were elite warriors, veterans of dozens of campaigns across the galaxy. They moved in perfect formation, covering all angles, communicating through encrypted channels. By every tactical measure, they were unbeatable. Marcus watched them from a ridge 200 meters away. He could see their formation, their weapon capabilities, their communication patterns. But more than that, he could see the future, not literally but tactically. He saw every possible move they could make, every response to every action, branching out like a tree of probability. And in that tree, he saw exactly how to kill all of them without taking a single hit. The knowledge disturbed him. Part of Marcus, the part that was still human, wanted to avoid conflict. These soldiers were just following orders like he had once done. But another part of him, the part that was growing stronger, saw them only as targets, as problems to be solved through the optimal application of force. He tried to move away to avoid engagement, but his body would not fully obey. His hand reached for the Dominion rifle he had taken from the ship. His feet moved to a better firing position. The tactical imperatives were overriding his conscious choices. Marcus fired 6 shots in 4 seconds. Each bullet found its target with impossible precision. Soldiers fell before they could raise their weapons. Each one hit in the exact weak point of their armor that Marcus somehow knew existed. The remaining soldiers scattered for cover, their training taking over. But Marcus had already predicted their movement. He was repositioning before they reached safety, his shots intercepting them mid-stride. In 20 seconds, all 12 soldiers were down. Marcus stood in the aftermath, breathing normally, his heart rate barely elevated. The tactical part of his mind was already analyzing the engagement, cataloging the data, learning from it. But the human part was screaming in horror at what he had just done. "No," Marcus said aloud. "I'm not a killer. I'm a soldier. There's a difference." But was there? The line seemed increasingly blurry. He moved away quickly before more patrols arrived. As he ran, Marcus noticed something strange. His body felt different, stronger, faster. His reflexes seemed sharper than before the battle. It was as if the combat itself had enhanced him somehow, feeding some alien system inside him that grew through conflict. The thought terrified him more than anything the Dominion had done. Commander VE received the report of the patrol's destruction with grim acceptance. 12 elite soldiers eliminated without landing a single shot. The human had not just escaped. He had become something deadlier than anything in the Dominion's extensive catalog of threats. "Increase the bounty," V ordered. "I want every available unit searching for him, and send word to High Command. We may have created something that threatens more than just this planet." His second officer looked shocked. "Commander, surely you exaggerate. It is one human." "You did not see the tactical analysis," V replied, pulling up holographic displays of Marcus' escape. "He moves with perfect efficiency. Every action is optimal. He fights as if he knows what we will do before we do it. This is not training or experience. This is something new." The second officer studied the data, and his 3 eyes widened. "How is this possible?" "The neural integration was supposed to extract information from the human," Vec explained. "But instead it created a feedback loop. Our tactical systems merged with his human creativity. The result is a hybrid intelligence that processes warfare in ways we never conceived. He does not just fight, he exists within the conceptual space of combat itself. Then we must destroy him immediately. Yes, V agreed. But I fear it may already be too late. Marcus reached the valley by nightfall. The resistance base was hidden in an old mining complex, invisible from aerial surveillance. He approached cautiously, knowing that trigger-happy guards might shoot first and ask questions later. But as he got closer, something strange happened. The guards were arguing. What should have been a routine patrol had devolved into a heated dispute about watch rotations. Voices were raised. Weapons were being handled more aggressively than necessary. The tension was palpable, like violence hanging in the air, waiting to happen. Marcus realized with growing horror that he was causing it. His presence somehow amplified conflict, made aggression more likely. The alien technology had not just made him a better fighter, it had made him a catalyst for warfare itself. He backed away carefully, and the argument began to cool. The guards returned to their posts, confused about why they had gotten so angry. Marcus waited an hour before approaching again, testing his theory. Sure enough, the closer he got, the more agitated the guards became. This was bad, very bad. If he could not even approach friendly forces without causing violence, how could he help the resistance? How could he exist around other humans at all? Marcus decided to test the limits of this effect. He found a small group of resistance fighters on patrol a mile from the main base. He observed them from a distance, watching their behavior. They were calm, professional, working together well. Then he moved closer. Within 10 minutes, small disagreements began. Someone's joke landed wrong. Someone else took offense. What should have been minor friction escalated into shouting. One soldier shoved another. Weapons were raised in anger, not at enemies, but at each other. Marcus fled before it went further, and behind him, the soldiers slowly calmed down, looking confused about what had just happened. He spent the night in a cave 3 miles from the base, trying to understand what he had become. The tactical knowledge was one thing, something he could perhaps control or manage. But this other effect, this ability to amplify conflict, was beyond his control. He was becoming a living weapon of war, and the weapon did not distinguish between friend and enemy. Morning brought a new horror. Marcus woke to find his hands had been moving during sleep, drawing tactical diagrams in the dirt, attack plans, defensive positions, kill zones. His unconscious mind had been planning warfare while he slept, working through problems he had not even considered while awake. He tried to remember his dreams. There had been something about Sarah, but he could not recall details. Instead, his mind was filled with firing solutions, troop movements, and casualty projections. His humanity was being eroded, replaced by pure tactical calculation. Marcus made a decision. He would approach the resistance base during daylight openly, giving them time to prepare. He would warn them about what he had become, about the effect he had on others. If they decided to shoot him, perhaps that would be for the best. At least then, the weapon would be destroyed before it caused more harm. He walked down the mountain path toward the base, hands raised above his head. The guards spotted him immediately, weapons trained on his chest. Marcus could see a dozen ways to disarm them, to reach cover, to survive. The tactical knowledge flowed like water, but he forced himself to remain still, to submit. "I'm Marcus Webb," he called out. "Staff Sergeant, U.S. Army. I need to speak with Colonel Chen. It's urgent." The guards did not lower their weapons, but they did not fire either. Marcus could feel the tension rising, his presence making them more aggressive. One guard's finger tightened on the trigger. Another shifted his stance to a more attack-ready position. The violence was building like a storm. "Please," Marcus said. "I know I'm causing this. Whatever you're feeling, whatever anger is building, it's coming from me. You need to know that before you let me into the base. I'm dangerous, but not in the way you think." One of the guards spoke into a radio. There was a long pause, then a response. "Colonel Chun says bring him in, but if he makes any hostile move, kill him immediately." They bound his hands and blindfolded him before leading him into the complex. Even blind, Marcus could sense the layout, could feel the tactical possibilities. He knew how many guards there were, where the weapons were stored, the best routes for infiltration or escape. The knowledge was automatic, unavoidable. Colonel Sarah Chun was a hard woman made harder by years of losing wars. She had commanded the Eastern Resistance for 6 months, watching her forces dwindle with each engagement. She had heard about Marcus Webb, about the man who had held off an entire Dominion company to save his squad. She had hoped he was dead rather than captured. Death was kinder than what the aliens did to prisoners. So when they brought him into her office, she was surprised to see him apparently unharmed. More surprised to see something wrong in his eyes. Something that made her hand drift toward her sidearm without conscious thought. "Staff Sergeant Webb," she said formally. "You were reported as captured 3 weeks ago." "I was," Marcus replied. His voice was calm, but Chun felt an unreasonable anger rising in her chest, a desire to hurt him for no logical reason. "How did you escape?" "I'm not sure I can explain it properly," Marcus said. "The Dominion did something to me. An experiment. It went wrong. Now I'm different." "Different how?" Chen's hand was fully on her pistol now, though she could not explain why. Marcus had made no threatening moves, yet every instinct screamed that he was dangerous. "I can see tactics like others see colors," Marcus explained. "I know things I shouldn't know, and worse, I make people around me more violent. You feel it now, don't you? An urge to hurt me. That's what I do. I amplify conflict." Chen realized he was right. Her anger was irrational, sourceless, growing. She forced her hand away from her weapon through sheer willpower. "Why come here?" she asked. "Why not stay away if you know you're dangerous?" "Because we're losing this war," Marcus said simply. "And I think I might be able to change that. The Dominion made me into a weapon. Maybe we can aim that weapon at them." Chun studied him carefully. The tactical officer in her saw the potential. One man who could turn battles, who could bring victory where defeat seemed certain. But the human in her saw the cost, saw what Marcus was becoming. "What do you need?" she asked finally. "A test," Marcus replied. "Give me a target. Let me prove I can help, but keep me isolated from your main forces. If I lose control, if I become more danger than asset, kill me." Colonel Chun called her senior officers. They argued for 3 hours about what to do with Marcus Webb. Some wanted him executed immediately as a potential threat. Others saw him as their last hope against impossible odds. Finally, Chun made the decision. "We have a target," she told Marcus. "A Dominion supply depot 15 miles east, heavily guarded. We've lost 2 teams trying to hit it. If you can destroy that depot without getting killed, we'll talk about what comes next." Marcus nodded. "I'll need weapons and equipment." "You'll get them," Chin said, looking at him with something like pity. "I hope you know what you're doing, because if you're wrong about controlling this, a lot of people are going to die." "They're going to die anyway," Marcus replied. His voice was cold and tactical, the voice of someone calculating acceptable losses. At least this way, some of them might survive. As he left her office, Colonel Chun sat down heavily in her chair. She had just made a decision that might save the resistance or destroy it. She had weaponized a human being, turned a man into a tool of war. It was the right tactical choice, but she wondered if tactical right was the same as morally right. Outside, Marcus prepared for his first mission as something both more and less than human. He checked weapons with mechanical efficiency, planned his approach with inhuman precision, and deep inside, the part of him that was still Marcus Webb screamed at what he was becoming. But the screaming grew quieter with each passing hour, drowned out by tactical calculations and strategic projections. The metamorphosis was not complete, but it was accelerating. Soon there might be nothing left of the man, only the weapon. And the weapon was very, very good at killing. The Dominion supply depot sat in a valley like a fortress, surrounded by energy barriers and automated defenses. 200 soldiers guarded it in rotating shifts, backed by heavy weapons and aerial surveillance. By any reasonable assessment, it was impregnable. The resistance had lost 23 fighters trying to breach it over the past 2 months. Marcus studied the depot from a ridge 2 miles away, his mind processing information faster than any computer. He saw the patrol patterns, the weak points in the barriers, the precise timing of the shift changes. But more than that, he saw the flow of potential combat, the shape that the battle would take if he approached from different angles. It was like looking at a sculpture that did not exist yet, but could be carved from possibilities. He moved at midnight, when 3 shifts overlapped and the guards were most distracted. His approach was not stealthy in the traditional sense. He simply moved in the exact blind spots of the surveillance, existing in the gaps of their coverage. The aliens had sophisticated technology, but they relied on it too much, trusting their systems more than their instincts. The first guard died without knowing Marcus was there. A knife in the exact spot where their armor was weakest, angled to sever the major nerve cluster that all Dominion species shared. Marcus knew this anatomy, though he had never studied it. The knowledge simply existed in his mind, downloaded during his time on their ship. The second and third guards went down in quick succession. Marcus moved like liquid violence, each action flowing into the next with perfect economy. No wasted movement, no excess force, just the optimal application of lethal precision. By the time the alarms sounded, Marcus had already penetrated the inner perimeter. 50 soldiers converged on his position, but he was not there anymore. He had predicted their response and moved to exploit the gap their convergence created. While they searched for him in the eastern sector, he was planting explosives in the western ammunition storage. The depot erupted in a chain of explosions that lit the night sky. Secondary detonations followed as munitions cooked off. Marcus escaped through the chaos, killing anyone who got in his path. It was not combat as much as execution, each target falling in the precise sequence he had predicted. He returned to the resistance base at dawn, covered in alien blood but uninjured. The guards at the perimeter felt the familiar surge of aggression as he approached, but held their fire. Marcus had succeeded. The impossible target had been destroyed. Colonel Chun met him in the briefing room, studying the man who had just done what entire teams could not. "How many casualties on their side?" she asked. 47 dead, Marcus reported. Another 20 injured. Complete destruction of their ammunition reserves and supply chains for this sector. They will need 3 weeks to rebuild operational capacity. "And you?" Chen asked. "Any injuries?" "None." Marcus's voice was flat, emotionless. "They never came close to hitting me. I saw every move before they made it." Chen felt a chill. This was not confidence. It was certainty, absolute and inhuman. "The other officers want to use you for more operations," she said. "Hit their bases, disrupt their supply lines. You could turn this war around." "I know," Marcus replied. "I have already calculated 17 high-value targets I could eliminate within the next month. The probability of success for each is above 90%. "That's not what concerns me," Chun said carefully. "What concerns me is what happens to you during these missions. Are you still in control? Are you still Marcus Webb?" For the first time, emotion flickered across his face. Pain, fear, uncertainty. "I don't know," he admitted. "During the fight, I'm not thinking. I'm just reacting, executing tactical solutions. Feels good, Colonel. Too good. Like I was made for this." "You weren't made for this," Chun said firmly. "You're a man who had this forced on him." "Does the distinction matter?" Marcus asked. "Either way, I'm a weapon now. The only question is whether you're going to use me." Before Chun could respond, one of her lieutenants burst into the room. "Ma'am, we have a situation. 2 of our patrols just got into a firefight with each other. 3 wounded, 1 critical. They were arguing about Marcus, about whether we should trust him. Then someone pulled a weapon and it all went to hell." Chun and Marcus exchanged looks. The effect was spreading. Just having Marcus at the base was causing aggression, turning minor disagreements into violence. "I need to leave," Marcus said. "I can't stay here. My presence is too dangerous." "Where will you go?" Chun asked. "Wherever you need me to go," Marcus replied. "Give me targets. I'll hit them. Just keep me away from large groups of our people. I'll work alone." Chun considered this. It made tactical sense, but it also meant unleashing a barely controlled weapon with no oversight. You'll need a handler, she decided. Someone to give you orders, coordinate your strikes. Someone who can evaluate whether you're still in control or if you've gone too far. Who do you have in mind? Me, Chun said. I'll be your handler. You report only to me. If I think you're losing yourself, I'll make the call to end this. Marcus understood what she meant. End this meant end him. He nodded in acceptance. Over the next 3 weeks, Marcus became a ghost story among Dominion forces. He would appear at their bases like a demon, destroy critical infrastructure, kill key personnel, and vanish before they could mount a response. Each attack was more devastating than the last. Not because Marcus used more force, but because he was learning, evolving, becoming more efficient with each engagement. The resistance victories stacked up. Supply lines disrupted, communication arrays destroyed, entire companies pinned down or eliminated. Colonel Chun coordinated Marcus's strikes with conventional resistance attacks, using his abilities to create opportunities for her regular forces. For the first time since the invasion began, humans were winning. But the cost was becoming apparent. Marcus called Chun after each mission, his reports growing shorter and more clinical. Targets eliminated. Objectives achieved. Casualties inflicted. There was less of the man in his voice and more of the machine. Chun could hear him slipping away, losing pieces of his humanity with each battle. And there were other problems. Soldiers who had fought alongside Marcus in coordinated operations reported disturbing behavior. He had killed enemies who were already wounded and helpless. He had chosen brutal methods when cleaner options existed. He had smiled during combat, taken pleasure in the killing. He's becoming what we fight against, one lieutenant told Chun. He's not a soldier anymore. He's something else. Chun confronted Marcus during one of their check-ins. They met in a neutral location, an abandoned factory far from any forces on either side. Chun kept her hand near her weapon the entire time, though she knew it would do no good if Marcus decided to attack. You're losing control, she said bluntly. Your last 3 missions showed unnecessary brutality. You're not just completing objectives anymore. You're enjoying it. Marcus stared at her with those cold, calculating eyes. You're a person, not an asset. Am I? Marcus asked. What percentage of my brain is still human? How much of my thinking is really mine versus alien programming? I can't answer that anymore. Maybe I am just an asset now, just a very effective one. If you believe that, then you've already lost, Chin said. The Marcus Webb I read about would never give up his humanity, no matter what was done to him. Something flickered in Marcus's eyes. Anger, pain. It's hard to tell that Marcus Webb is dead, he said quietly. The Dominion killed him on their ship. What you're talking to now is what they created. Then why did you come back? Chun pressed. Why not join them? If you're just programming, just a weapon, why choose our side? Marcus had no answer. The question seemed to trouble him, creating doubt in the certainty he had wrapped around himself. Finally, he spoke quietly. I don't know. Maybe there's something left of him. Or maybe I'm just programmed to destroy the ones who made me. Find out which, Chun ordered. Because if you're just a weapon-following programming, I can't use you. You're too dangerous. But if there's still a man in there, still someone who can choose, then we can work together. Their conversation was interrupted by an emergency broadcast. A Dominion assault force was moving toward a civilian shelter that housed 2,000 refugees. The attack would happen within hours. The resistance had no forces close enough to help. The civilians would be slaughtered. Marcus was already calculating response scenarios, his mind processing options. I can reach them in time, he said. But the Dominion force is large, 300 soldiers plus armor support. Even with my abilities, I cannot guarantee I can stop them all. Then don't stop them all, Chun said, making a decision she knew she would regret. Just slow them down long enough for the civilians to evacuate. Can you do that? Marcus ran the numbers, the probabilities. His chances of survival were low, very low. The tactical part of his mind suggested alternative approaches, strategies that would save his life at the cost of civilian casualties. But something else, some stubborn human part, rejected those options. "I'll do it," he said. "But Colonel, if I don't survive this, you should know something. The Dominion fears me. Not because I'm dangerous to their soldiers, but because I represent something they don't understand. I'm proof that their perfect warfare theory is wrong. That humans can be unpredictable, can become something they never calculated. Make them know that," he continued. "Make them understand they lost this war the moment they tried to turn me into a weapon." Chun nodded, understanding this might be the last time she spoke to Marcus Webb. "Good luck, Sergeant." Marcus moved fast, pushing his enhanced body to its limits. He reached the civilian shelter 3 hours before the Dominion force arrived, giving the refugees time to start evacuating. But the process was slow and disorganized. They would never all get out in time. He established defensive positions in the ruins surrounding the shelter, preparing for a battle he knew he could not win. 2,000 civilians against 300 elite soldiers with armor support. The mathematics were impossible. But mathematics had never accounted for a man who had become a battlefield himself. The Dominion forces arrived in perfect formation, advancing with practiced efficiency. Their commander had been briefed about the escaped human, about his abilities. They came prepared with overlapping fields of fire, redundant communication, and strict orders to operate as a unified force. Marcus opened fire from 3 different positions within 60 seconds, making them think there were multiple defenders. He moved through the ruins like a ghost, using the terrain with inhuman precision. Each shot was perfect, finding weak points, killing efficiently, but there were too many. For every soldier he killed, 3 more took their place. The battle became a nightmare of tactical perfection from both sides. The Dominion adapted to his strategies, closed his escape routes, and forced him into a shrinking defensive perimeter. Marcus fought with everything he had become, using abilities that should not exist. But he was still one man and they were an army. And then something changed. The Dominion soldiers began making mistakes. Small at first, then larger. Units lost coordination. Communication broke down. Soldiers fired at shadows, wasted ammunition on nothing. The perfect military machine started to fracture. Marcus realized what was happening. His presence, his ability to amplify conflict was not just affecting his side. It was affecting everyone. The intense combat had supercharged his ability, turning it into an area weapon that disrupted tactical thinking. The Dominion force was literally tearing itself apart. Not because of his bullets, but because of what he had become. Soldiers argued mid-battle. Some units accused others of cowardice or incompetence. Friendly fire incidents erupted. The Dominion's perfect discipline collapsed into chaos. They had brought 300 soldiers to kill one man. But that one man was a living embodiment of warfare, and warfare consumed them. By the time the civilians had evacuated, the Dominion force had effectively destroyed itself. Marcus stood among the ruins, surrounded by alien bodies, covered in blood, both his and theirs. He had been shot twice, stabbed once, and burned by energy weapons, but he was alive, and 2,000 civilians were safe. Colonel Chun arrived 6 hours later with a relief force. She found Marcus sitting against a wall, bleeding, exhausted, but still conscious. The expression on his face was one she could not read. Satisfaction, horror, perhaps both. "You did it," she said simply. "I killed them all," Marcus replied. "Not with bullets, with what I am. I made them kill each other, made them destroy their own force. Chin, I'm not just dangerous. I'm a plague. I'm warfare incarnate." "You saved 2,000 people this time," Chen said. "But what happens next time?" Marcus asked. "What happens when I can't control it? What happens when friendly forces get caught in my effect? I'm getting stronger. Every battle feeds whatever this is inside me. Eventually, I won't be able to distinguish between enemy and ally. I'll just be a walking war zone." Chun sat beside him, ignoring the blood and debris. "Then we figure it out. We find a way to control it, or to channel it, or to turn it off. But we don't give up. That's not what soldiers do." Marcus looked at her, and for a moment she saw the man he used to be. Tired, scared, but still fighting. "I'm not sure I'm a soldier anymore, Colonel. I'm a weapon, and weapons don't get to choose when they stop firing." "Then we'll figure out how to make this weapon safe," Chun said firmly. "But first, we need to get you medical attention." As they moved toward the transport, Marcus felt something inside him growing, evolving. The battle had changed him again, pushed him further along the transformation. He could feel the tactical awareness expanding, the ability to cause conflict strengthening. He was becoming more powerful and less human with every engagement. The question was whether anything of Marcus Webb would survive the process. And if nothing did, what would be left in his place? A savior who could win the war, or a monster that would consume everyone, friend and enemy alike? The answer, Marcus feared, would come sooner than anyone wanted. Because the Dominion had noticed him now, truly noticed him. And they were not going to send soldiers anymore. They were going to send something much worse. Commander V stood before the Dominion High Command, his 3 eyes downcast in submission. The holographic projections of the council members towered above him, their faces showing cold disapproval. He had failed. One human had disrupted operations across an entire planetary sector. The mathematics said this was impossible. Yet it had happened. "Explain," the first council demanded. "How has one primitive caused more damage than entire rebel armies on other worlds?" "The human is no longer primitive," Vec replied carefully. "The neural integration experiment created something beyond our models. He does not fight according to any tactical doctrine we understand. He exists within warfare itself, manipulates it like a natural force." "Poetic nonsense," another council member spat. "He is flesh and blood. He can be killed like anything else." "We have tried," Vex said. "We have sent our best soldiers. He kills them. We have used overwhelming force. He turns it against us. We have attempted to predict his movements. He makes prediction impossible because he operates beyond the scope of our absolute war theory." The first council was silent for a long moment. The Dominion had never encountered a problem that could not be solved through force and calculation. Their entire civilization was built on that certainty. If one human could break it, what did it mean for the Dominion itself? "We will deploy the War Arm Master Caste," the first council decided. 50 of our finest warriors, those who have ended civilizations. If this human is truly as dangerous as you claim, they will be sufficient. And if they fail, we will initiate Protocol Omega. V felt his blood chill. Protocol Omega, total planetary sterilization. The complete elimination of all life on Earth, humans and Dominion forces alike. "Surely that is excessive," Vec protested. "The cost of allowing this anomaly to continue is higher," the first council interrupted. "You created this problem, Commander. We are solving it. The War Arm Masters deploy within the solar cycle. You will coordinate their efforts. If you fail again, you will share the planet's fate." The holographic projection ended, leaving V alone in the command center. He had seen the War Arm Masters fight. They were not soldiers, they were artists of destruction, trained from birth in the perfection of killing. Each one was worth 100 normal warriors. 50 of them together had once exterminated an entire species in a single day. But as V reviewed the data on Marcus Webb, he felt something he had not experienced in his long military career. Fear. Not for himself, but for the War Arm Masters. Because the human was evolving, growing stronger with each engagement. By the time they arrived, what would he have become? Marcus lay in a medical bay deep within the resistance complex, his body healing from the wounds of the civilian shelter battle. The resistance doctors marveled at his recovery speed. Injuries that should have taken weeks to heal were closing in days. His body was adapting, optimizing itself for combat, just like his mind had. Colonel Chen visited him daily, bringing reports and making decisions about how to use their most dangerous asset. But she also came to check on the man, to see if Marcus Webb still existed inside the weapon he had become. "We're winning," she told him during one visit. "For the first time since the invasion, we're actually pushing them back. The Dominion is retreating from 3 sectors. Your strikes have disrupted their supply chains so badly they can't maintain their positions. That's good, Marcus said, but his voice was flat, mechanical. He was staring at the ceiling, his mind clearly somewhere else. Marcus, where are you right now? Chen asked gently. Planning, he replied. There are 17 Dominion installations within striking distance. I'm calculating optimal attack sequences, resource requirements, casualty projections. I can't stop thinking about it, Chen. Even when I'm resting, my mind is waging war. Then stop, Chen ordered. That's an order. Take a break from the tactical thinking. Talk to me as a person, not as a weapon. Marcus tried. He really tried, but the thoughts kept coming, tactical information flowing like a river. He could not. Damn. I don't think I can anymore, he admitted. It's not something I turn on and off. It's what I am now. Do you understand? I don't have thoughts about tactics. I am tactical thought. Chun felt her heart break a little. She was losing him, watching a good man dissolve into pure warfare. What can I do to help? Find a way to end this quickly, Marcus said. For a moment, his voice carried real emotion. Find a way to win before I become something that can't be allowed to exist. Because I can feel it, Chen. I'm changing. Every battle, every kill, every moment of violence feeds the transformation. Soon there won't be anything human left. Just a walking war that kills everything around it. Before Chun could respond, alarms blared throughout the complex. Multiple Dominion signatures were approaching fast, big ones. The sensor operators reported contacts unlike anything they had seen before. 50 ships, each carrying a single warrior, moving with speed and precision that made normal Dominion forces look clumsy. The War Masters, Marcus said, sitting up suddenly. His eyes went distant as tactical information flooded his awareness. They're sending the War Masters, elite killers trained for decades, enhanced beyond normal Dominion physiology. This is new. This is escalation. Can we fight them? Chen asked. Marcus ran probabilities, calculated scenarios. Not in conventional combat. They're too skilled. His eyes focused on something only he could see. There's a way. It's risky. It might work, or it might kill everyone within 10 miles. Explain, Chen demanded. My presence amplifies conflict, Marcus said, speaking rapidly as the plan formed. What if I don't fight them directly? What if I turn an entire area into a combat amplification zone? Make the conflict itself so intense that it consumes everything, including me. That's suicide. Maybe, Marcus acknowledged. But it's tactical suicide. There's a difference, Colonel. These War Masters are coming to kill me specifically. They'll tear through your forces like paper to reach me. This way, I draw them to a controlled location far from your people and see if I can make warfare so intense that even they can't survive it. Chen wanted to refuse, wanted to find another way. But the tactical part of her, the part that had kept the resistance alive through impossible odds, saw the logic. Marcus was right. The War Masters would kill hundreds, maybe thousands, of resistance fighters to reach their target. This way, the cost was one man. One man who was barely human anymore. Where? She asked. Geneva, Marcus replied. The ruins. It's empty of civilians. It's strategic territory the Dominion wants to control, and the urban terrain gives me advantages. I can turn the entire city into a labyrinth of violence. You'll need support, equipment, supplies, surveillance. No, Marcus interrupted. I need to go alone. Every person you send with me is another person who will be affected by what I am. They'll turn violent, make mistakes, die. I have to do this isolated. Chun realized he was right and hated it. When do you leave? Now, Marcus said, standing. His wounds were not fully healed, but he moved without pain, his body already optimized for what was coming. The War Masters will reach Earth orbit in 6 hours. I need to be in position before they land. They stood facing each other, warrior to warrior, knowing this might be the last time. Chun extended her hand, and Marcus shook it. His grip was too strong, too precise, the handshake of something that had studied human gestures but no longer truly understood them. Good luck, Marcus, Chin said. Luck is a variable for insufficient data, Marcus replied. Then, seeing her expression, he forced a small smile. It looked wrong on his face, like a mask. Sorry, that's the alien programming talking. What I meant to say is, thank you for treating me like a person when I wasn't sure I was one anymore. Then he was gone, moving through the complex with inhuman grace. Chun watched him go and said a prayer to a god she had stopped believing in years ago. Not for victory, just that something of Marcus Webb would survive what was coming. Marcus reached Geneva in 4 hours, traveling by foot and stolen vehicles. The city was a graveyard, destroyed in the early days of the invasion. Skyscrapers stood like broken teeth against the sky. Streets were cratered and burned. It was perfect. He spent the remaining time preparing the battlefield, not with weapons or traps, but with himself. He moved through the ruins, letting his presence saturate the area, turning the entire city into an extension of his will. This was new, something he had not tried before. He was weaponizing the space itself, making the ruins into a tactical environment that would amplify every aspect of combat. He could feel his consciousness expanding, spreading through Geneva like invisible fire. Every street became a firing lane in his mind. Every building became cover or concealment that he understood perfectly. He was not in Geneva. He was Geneva, a city-sized weapon waiting for targets to enter its kill zone. The war masters landed at dawn. 50 sleek ships descended on the outskirts of the city, disgorging their deadly cargo. The warriors emerged in full combat armor, weapons humming with lethal energy. They moved in a loose formation, each one a master of their craft, confident in their supremacy. Marcus watched from the center of the city. He could feel them entering his domain, feel the way his presence began to affect them immediately. But they were strong, disciplined. They resisted the influence, maintained their tactical coherence. This would not be easy. The first war master to reach him came through what used to be a shopping district. She moved with liquid grace, her forearms holding different weapons, her senses alert for ambush. She was prepared for a conventional fight, for an enemy who would hide and attack from advantage. Instead, Marcus walked out into the open street and stood waiting. The war master stopped, confused by the lack of tactics. Then she opened fire. Marcus moved, not dodging, but existing in the spaces between her shots, as if he knew where each projectile would be before it was fired. He returned fire with his rifle, and she blocked with an energy shield. They circled each other, and the war master felt something wrong. The human moved perfectly, but it was not skill. It was certainty. He fought as if he already knew the outcome. More disturbing, she felt an overwhelming urge to kill him. Not tactically, but personally. To destroy him with her hands. To make it painful. This was wrong. War masters did not feel anger. They killed efficiently, without emotion. But now she wanted to hurt him, wanted to make him suffer. The feeling grew stronger with each second. She charged, abandoning tactics for rage. Marcus sidestepped and she crashed through a wall. Before she could recover, he was there, his knife finding the weak point in her armor. The war master died not because Marcus was stronger or faster, but because she had stopped thinking tactically. She had let emotion override training. 1 down. 49 to go. The other war masters found her body and understood the threat level had been miscalculated. They adapted, moving in coordinated groups, supporting each other, maintaining discipline against the emotional influence. But as more of them entered the city, as they got closer to Marcus, the effect intensified. The ruins of Geneva became a maze of violence. War masters fought with breathtaking skill, but Marcus was always one step ahead. He led them into ambushes of their own design, turned their tactics against them, exploited their coordination, and always the emotional influence grew stronger. Fights between war masters erupted. Small disagreements about strategy became shouting matches, then turned physical. The perfect warriors began to fracture, their discipline eroding under the weight of Marcus's presence. They were not just fighting him. They were fighting each other, fighting themselves, fighting the very concept of coordinated warfare. Marcus moved through the chaos like a conductor leading an orchestra of destruction. He was not just participating in the battle. He was the battle. Every shot, every explosion, every death was part of a larger pattern only he could see. The city had become an extension of his will, and that will was pure, focused violence. But the cost was devastating. Marcus could feel himself disappearing, his personality dissolving into tactical calculations. He was not thinking about survival anymore. He was not thinking about anything except the most efficient way to kill. The human was gone. Only the weapon remained. By noon, 30 war masters were dead. The survivors had abandoned coordination entirely, each one fighting alone, consumed by rage and tactical paranoia. They killed each other as often as they targeted Marcus. The ruins of Geneva had become a self-perpetuating engine of violence, fed by the presence of a man who had become warfare incarnate. Commander V watched from orbit, the tactical feeds showing him a nightmare. His finest warriors, the elite of the elite, were destroying themselves. And at the center of it all stood one human, seemingly untouched, orchestrating destruction with casual perfection. Initiate Protocol Omega, V ordered quietly. Target Geneva and the surrounding 100-mile radius. Sterilization depth complete. Authorization code VC 773. The weapons officer hesitated. Sir, that will kill our war masters and the human. They are already dead, V replied. They just do not know it yet. Better a quick death from orbit than what that human will do to them. The orbital bombardment platforms began charging their weapons. In 10 minutes, Geneva would be glass. Everything within 100 miles would be reduced to atoms. The human weapon would be destroyed along with any evidence of what the Dominion had created. In the city below, Marcus sensed the change. His awareness had expanded beyond the merely tactical. He could feel the weapons charging, could calculate the trajectory and timing. He had minutes left to live and realized he did not care. The part of him that was still Marcus Webb understood this was wrong. He should want to survive, should fear death. But the weapon felt only satisfaction. He had completed his purpose. He had proven that even the Dominion's best could not stop him. That was enough. Then a voice crackled over his radio. Marcus, get out of there. We're detecting massive energy buildup from orbit. They're going to sterilize the area. You need to evacuate now. Colonel Chen, the human part stirred. He remembered her. Remembered being human. Remembered that survival was supposed to matter. I can't, he replied, his voice strange even to himself. There are still targets. The mission isn't complete. The mission is over, Chen shouted. You killed them, Marcus. You won. Now get out before they kill you. Marcus looked around at the ruins filled with dead war masters, at the last few survivors tearing each other apart in berserk rage. He had won. The battle was over, but he could not seem to stop fighting. Could not turn off the tactical imperatives driving him forward. Chun, he said slowly, I don't think I can stop. I don't think there's enough of me left to choose to stop. Then I'm ordering you to stop, Chen said, her voice firm. As your commanding officer, I am ordering you to evacuate immediately. You're a soldier, Marcus. Soldiers follow orders. Something in that statement reached the last human part of him. He was a soldier. Soldiers followed orders. Even when everything else was gone, that remained. It was not tactical. It was not mathematical. It was human. Understood, Marcus said. Evacuating now. He ran. Not with tactical precision, but with simple human desperation. He ran from the city as the sky above began to glow with the terrible light of Dominion bombardment weapons. He ran as the first energy beam struck, turning buildings to vapor. He ran as Geneva died behind him. He almost made it. The shockwave caught him at the edge of the blast radius, throwing him through the air like a doll. He hit the ground hard, felt bones break, felt his enhanced body struggling to repair damage faster than it was being inflicted. The world went white, then red, then dark. When Marcus woke, he was in a resistance medical facility, wrapped in bandages and hooked to machines. Colonel Chun sat beside his bed, looking like she had not slept in days. "You lived," she said simply. "Parts of me," Marcus replied. His voice sounded more human than it had in weeks, though whether that was recovery or damage, he could not tell. "Did we win?" 30 war masters dead by your hand," Chun reported. "The remaining 20 died in the bombardment. The Dominion pulled back from 3 more sectors. And most importantly, they're scared. Actually scared. You broke something fundamental in their understanding of warfare." "Good," Marcus said. "Then how much of the weapons survived?" Chun understood the real question: how much of Marcus Webb still existed versus how much was alien tactical programming. "I don't know," she admitted. "But you stopped when I ordered you to. You chose to run instead of fight. That's human, Marcus. That's choice." Marcus wanted to believe her, but he could still feel the tactical awareness, the combat calculations running in the background of his mind. The weapon was still there, waiting. Always waiting. "What happens now?" he asked. Colonel Chun smiled grimly. "Now we push our advantage. The Dominion is scared, disorganized. We hit them before they recover. And you're going to help us do it. But on your terms this time. No more suicide missions. No more fighting alone. We do this together or not at all." Marcus closed his eyes, exhausted. The battle for Earth continued, and he would continue with it, weapon and man, monster and savior, until there was nothing left to fight, or nothing left of him to do the fighting. He just hoped that when the end came, there would be enough humanity remaining to know the difference. The Dominion High Command convened an emergency session for the first time in 3 centuries. The holographic chamber filled with the galaxy's most powerful military minds, all focused on one impossible problem. A single human had killed 50 war masters and forced a tactical retreat from an entire planetary sector. Their absolute war theory, the mathematical certainty that had conquered 847 species, had failed. "We cannot win this war," Commander Vex stated flatly. The other council members reacted with shock and anger, but VE continued. "Not because we lack forces or weapons. We cannot win because we are fighting something outside our calculations. Marcus Webb is not a soldier. He is warfare itself made flesh. Every engagement makes him stronger. Every tactical adaptation we make teaches him more. He will continue evolving until he becomes unstoppable. Then we sterilize the planet," a council member suggested. "Remove Earth entirely from the equation." "To what end?" V challenged. "The human has already changed the nature of warfare. He has shown that our theories are incomplete. What happens on the next world we try to conquer? What happens when other species learn that the Dominion can be beaten? The damage is already done." The council fell silent, processing this unprecedented situation. Finally, the first council spoke with the weight of 10,000 years of conquest behind it. "You are proposing surrender." "I am proposing survival," VE corrected. "We claimed mastery of war. We were wrong. The humans showed us that war is not mathematics. It is chaos, creativity, evolution, things we cannot model or predict. If we continue this campaign, we will lose. If we lose, our empire collapses. If we withdraw now and negotiate peace, we preserve ourselves and perhaps learn from this encounter." The debate raged for hours, but slowly, inevitably, the council reached the unthinkable conclusion. For the first time in their history, the Dominion would withdraw from an occupied world not because of military defeat, but because of a philosophical crisis. Marcus Webb had not just won battles, he had broken their understanding of war itself. On Earth, Marcus recovered slowly from his wounds. The Geneva bombardment had nearly killed him, and even his enhanced healing could not fix everything immediately. He spent weeks in the medical bay, his body repairing itself while his mind continued its relentless tactical processing. Colonel Chun visited daily, bringing updates about the war and sometimes just sitting in silence. She watched Marcus struggle with what he had become, watched him try to find balance between the weapon and the man. It was like watching someone learn to be human all over again. "The Dominion is retreating," she told him one day. "Not just from our sector. They're pulling back from half the planet. Our scouts report their forces consolidating around their primary landing sites. Preparing for evacuation, Marcus said immediately, his tactical mind analyzing patterns. They're leaving, but why? We hurt them, but not enough for total withdrawal. Does it matter? Chen asked. If they're leaving, we won. It matters, Marcus insisted. Understanding their retreat is as important as understanding their attack. Something changed. Something about me changed their calculations. He was right. 3 days later, a Dominion diplomatic shuttle landed at the Resistance headquarters, bearing a white flag and a message. Commander V himself had come to negotiate, though he looked diminished somehow, less certain than the conqueror who had arrived months ago. Colonel Chun met him in a neutral conference room, with Marcus present but standing in the shadows. His presence made the alien commander visibly uncomfortable, which Chun noted with satisfaction. "Why are you here?" she asked bluntly. "To offer terms," V replied. "The Dominion is withdrawing from Earth. We will remove all occupation forces, destroy all military installations we constructed, and provide reparations for damages caused. In exchange, Earth agrees to non-aggression and allows safe passage for our departing forces." Chun had expected many things, but not surrender. "You're just leaving? After everything?" "We are leaving because of everything," V said, his 3 eyes focusing on Marcus in the corner. "Because of him, we came here claiming mastery of war. We were wrong. Warfare is not something to be mastered. It is a living thing, evolving and unpredictable. Your soldier proved that. He became something our entire civilization never conceived possible. I'm not responsible for your retreat," Marcus spoke from the shadows, his voice carrying strange harmonics. "You still have overwhelming forces. You could win through attrition." "At what cost?" V challenged. "Every battle makes you stronger. Every engagement teaches you more. By the time we achieved victory through numbers, you would have evolved into something that could threaten our entire empire. We have calculated the probabilities. The only winning move is not to play." There was a long silence as the implications sank in. The Dominion feared Marcus not for what he was, but for what he might become. They were retreating not from defeat, but from the possibility of a future defeat they could not calculate or prevent. "I accept your terms," Chun said carefully, "but I have one condition. Before you leave, you fix what you did to Marcus. You created this, you undo it." V's expression showed something like pity. "We cannot." The neural integration was not a simple addition of technology to biology. It was a merger, a fundamental change at the deepest levels of consciousness. Removing the alien components now would kill him. He is what he is. That cannot be undone. Marcus had known this, but hearing it confirmed felt like a door closing forever. He would never be fully human again. The weapon was permanent. "Then teach us to control it," Chun demanded. "Give us the technology to help him manage what you made him into." "We will provide what data we have," V agreed. "But understand, we do not fully comprehend what he has become. Our scientists theorize that he is not simply using our technology. He has evolved beyond it, created something new from the merger of human and alien. He is unique, unprecedented. We cannot predict his ultimate development." The negotiations concluded quickly after that. The Dominion agreed to a full withdrawal within 1 month. They would leave behind technical data about the neural integration, though they warned it might be useless. Marcus Webb had become something beyond their science, a post-human entity that existed in the space between species. As V prepared to leave, he approached Marcus directly. "I wanted to tell you something," the alien commander said. "We have fought for 10,000 years. We have conquered hundreds of species. We have seen warriors beyond counting. But you are the only enemy I have ever feared, not because of what you did, but because of what you represent. The possibility that warfare itself can evolve, can become something beyond tactics and strategy. You are a new form of life, soldier. I am glad my species will not have to face you again." "I'm not a new form of life," Marcus said quietly. "I'm a man who had his humanity stolen and replaced with weapons. Don't mistake what happened to me for evolution. It's violation. V nodded slowly. Perhaps. But violation or evolution, the result is the same. You changed the nature of war. That will echo across the galaxy for generations. Then the alien commander left, and Marcus was alone with Colonel Chun in the conference room. They sat in silence, processing the impossible victory. Earth was free. The war was over. But the cost remained, standing before them in human form. "What do I do now?" Marcus asked. It was the question of a man, not a weapon, and Chun heard the desperate uncertainty in his voice. "You figure out how to live," she replied. "The war is over, Marcus. You don't have to be a weapon anymore." "I don't know how to be anything else," he admitted. "Every moment I'm processing tactics, calculating threats, planning battles. Even now, in peace, my mind is at war. How do I stop that?" Chun did not have an answer. No one did. Marcus Webb had become something unprecedented, and there was no manual for helping a living weapon learn to be human again. But she could try. "One day at a time," she said. "We start with small things. You take walks without tactical analysis. You have conversations without calculating outcomes. You remember what it was like to be human and try to find that person again." "What if that person is gone?" Marcus asked. "What if there's not enough left to find?" "Then you build a new person," Chun said firmly. "You're not the same Marcus Webb who went into that Dominion ship, but you're not just a weapon either. You're something in between. Maybe that's okay. Maybe you don't have to be fully human or fully weapon. Maybe you can be both and figure out what that means." Over the following weeks, as the Dominion withdrew from Earth, Marcus tried. He walked through the ruins of cities without mapping kill zones. He talked to other soldiers about life instead of tactics. He forced himself to think about the future in terms of hope rather than strategic projections. It was the hardest battle he had ever fought. The tactical imperatives were always there, whispering in the background of his mind. Every person he met was automatically assessed as a threat or an asset. Every environment became a potential battlefield. The weapon would not sleep, would not rest, would not stop. But slowly, painfully, Marcus found small victories. He spent an entire hour watching a sunset without calculating firing angles based on the light. He had a conversation with Chun that lasted 20 minutes before tactical thoughts intruded. He slept for 6 hours without dreaming of warfare. Small things, human things, pieces of a person reassembling themselves around the core of alien technology that could never be removed. The other resistance fighters did not know how to treat him. He was a hero who had saved their world, but also something frightening and inhuman. They kept their distance, spoke to him with cautious respect, avoided being alone with him. Marcus understood. He made them uncomfortable, triggered something primal that recognized a predator. Only Chun treated him like a person. She sought him out, had meals with him, talked to him about ordinary things. She was rebuilding him one conversation at a time, reminding him through simple human interaction that he was more than a weapon. 2 months after the Dominion withdrawal, Marcus stood on a hillside overlooking what used to be Denver. The city was destroyed, but people were already rebuilding. Humans had survived the impossible. They had faced extinction and refused to accept it. The sight should have filled him with hope, with pride. Instead, he felt empty. The tactical part of his mind noted optimal reconstruction plans, resource allocation, defensive positions for future invasions. But the human part felt nothing, or perhaps had forgotten how to feel. Chun joined him on the hillside, standing close enough to be present, but far enough to respect his space. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. "I'm thinking that I saved the world but lost myself in the process," Marcus replied. "The Dominion left, but they won anyway. They turned me into something that can't exist peacefully. I'm a weapon without a war, and I don't know what that makes me." "It makes you a survivor," Chun said, "like everyone else on this planet." "Do I deserve to survive?" Marcus asked, voicing the doubt that had haunted him. "I killed thousands. I became something monstrous. Yes, it was necessary. Yes, it saved lives. But does necessity excuse what I became?" Chun was quiet for a long moment before answering. "I don't know if deserve is the right word. You didn't choose this. The Dominion forced it on you. But you did choose to use what they made you into for good. You chose to save people instead of just killing enemies. That has to count for something. Does it count enough? Marcus pressed. Because I'm not done, Chin. The weapon is still here, still active. What happens if another threat appears? What happens if I lose control? What if next time I can't stop? Then we deal with it, Chen said firmly. But Marcus, you're so focused on what might go wrong that you're not seeing what you actually are. Yes, you're dangerous. Yes, you're changed. But you're also a man who chose to run when I ordered him to, even when every instinct said to fight. You're a man who sits here questioning his right to exist instead of accepting power without thought. That's human. That's who you are under all the alien technology. Marcus wanted to believe her, needed to believe her. But the tactical calculations kept running, analyzing threat scenarios, projecting futures where he became the very thing Earth needed protection from. I've been thinking about the future, he said slowly. About what I do with this power, this curse. And I have an idea. Tell me, Chin said. I become a guardian, Marcus explained. Not a soldier anymore, not a weapon of war, but something that stands between humanity and whatever comes next. The Dominion feared me because I exist outside their calculations. Maybe other threats will appear that require that same unpredictability. Maybe I can learn to control this, to channel it for protection instead of conquest. That sounds lonely, Chin observed. Standing apart, always ready for threats that might never come. It is, Marcus agreed. But it's better than the alternatives. Better than losing myself completely to the weapon. Better than being destroyed because people are afraid of me. This way I have purpose without war. I have meaning without constant violence. Chin nodded slowly, understanding. Marcus was choosing a path that acknowledged both what he was and what he wanted to be, not fully human, not purely a weapon, but something in between. A guardian at the threshold, keeping watch over a world that feared and needed him in equal measure. I'll support that, she said. The resistance can become something new too. Not just fighters but rebuilders. And you can be our insurance policy, the last line of defense if something emerges that conventional forces can't handle. They stood together on that hillside, looking at the broken city and the people determined to fix it. The war was over, but the future remained uncertain. The Dominion would spread word of what happened on Earth, of the human who became warfare incarnate. Some species might see it as a warning. Others might see it as a challenge. Marcus knew his story was not over. The weapon inside him would never truly sleep. The tactical imperatives would never completely fall silent. But perhaps that was acceptable. Perhaps being a guardian meant living with that constant vigilance, that endless calculation, that burden of potential violence held in check. A month later, Marcus left the Resistance headquarters for the last time. He had said his goodbyes, made his arrangements, established the protocols by which Chun could contact him if genuine threats emerged. He was walking away from society, from normal life, choosing isolation over the constant struggle of pretending to be human. But before he left, Chun gave him one final gift. It was a small cabin in the mountains, the same one Marcus had lived in before the war. It had been destroyed in the invasion, but she had it rebuilt exactly as it was. A place for him to retreat, to remember who he had been, to fight the most important battle of all. The battle to remain Marcus Webb, even as the weapon tried to consume him completely. He stood in that cabin now, 6 months after the war ended. The isolation was profound but necessary. Out here, away from people, his presence did not cause violence. He could exist without fear of hurting anyone, without the constant tactical analysis of social situations. But he was not at peace. Peace seemed impossible for what he had become. Instead, he had found something like balance. He spent his days monitoring global communications, watching for threats, staying ready. And he spent his nights fighting against the tactical imperatives, forcing himself to remember human things, to maintain his grip on the person buried under layers of alien technology. Some days were harder than others. Some days the weapon was so strong that Marcus could barely remember why being human mattered. But he kept fighting, kept choosing to be more than what the Dominion had made him. And on the clearest nights, when the stars burned bright above his mountain retreat, Marcus Webb would stand outside and look up at the galaxy. Out there, across those vast distances, the Dominion was spreading word of what had happened. A species that claimed mastery of war, and a single human who broke that claim. Not through superior technology or numbers, but through the unpredictable nature of human creativity and stubborn refusal to follow anyone's rules, even those written into his own biology. He was a warning to the galaxy, a symbol of what could happen when you tried to turn humanity into a weapon. And perhaps, if he was very lucky, he was also a promise that no matter how much violence and technology and tactical programming was forced upon a person, something human could survive, could choose, could remain. Marcus Webb, the man who became a battlefield, stood beneath the stars and made a simple promise to himself and to the world he had saved. He would remain. He would endure. He would be both weapon and guardian, monster and man, the impossible fusion that should not exist but did. And if another threat came, if Earth needed him again, he would be ready. Not because of programming or tactical imperatives, but because he chose to be. Because choice was the most human thing left in him, and he would not let go of it. The weapon would never sleep, but the man would never surrender.